How's it going, everybody? My name is Antonio, and today I have Mr. Stephen Roman, CEO of Global Atomic, which is a uranium development company, on the barbecue to see how well he cooks. But who's not here with us today, though, is your financial advisor. This is going to be a general and impersonal conversation that is highly likely to contain a lot of forward-looking statements, uncertain outlooks, and generally hopes for the future, which means that you should always double, triple check whatever is being asked and answered in here by visiting setter.com and reading the official documents published by Global Atomic. That all said, I feel like there's almost no need for introduction here, since this must be one of the most famous and most liked uranium companies out there, which I think Mr. Roman will be happy to hear. But just for the sakes of it, Global Atomic is in short today a roughly 550 million Canadian dollar uranium development company, which is currently building its Dasa underground uranium project in Africa, in Niger, or Niger specifically. Dasa is the highest grade uranium deposit outside of the Athabasca Basin, and the company plans to produce 44.1 million pounds of yellowcake over the first 12 years, at least so far, but they have some stuff coming up that you'll hear about that number might change. Now, my calculator says that's roughly 3.7 million pounds annually, rounded up as it stays today, with deliveries currently scheduled for Q1 of 2025. Global Atomic also has a joint venture on a zinc processing facility in Turkey, and for some reason people don't care about zinc, but zinc cares about the people, since the project generates decent cash flows for the company. Give you an idea, the amount in Q1 2023 was hit by the processing facility stalling for because actually of the earthquakes, but still that number was $130,000. And to give you an idea where it was before that, Q1 last year, the cash flow was roughly $420,000, give or take, per quarter, that is. So nothing to sneeze at. Moving forward, the plan seems to be quite simple right now. The full focus is on getting the Dasa uranium project into production, start cash flowing, keep exploring, and grow that way. With that all said, Mr. Roman, what am I missing here in the description of your company?
No, I think, Antonio, that was a great description. Thank you very much for the intro. Glad to be here again. The Turkish asset, of course, we just to start on that one, we got that going in 2009, and it's been making money for us ever since, and of course helped us finance a lot of the work we've done at Dasa. Post Fukushima, of course, the whole market dried up for raising money for uranium projects. So the Turkish asset really helped us move that along to where we are today. And of course, we are the only greenfields uranium project in the world currently under development. There's others that are coming on, but they are legacy projects that are being restarted. We're the only brand new one. And I think that's important because we'll be a very modern, up-to-date facility using EP4 and IFC performance standards. And it's going to be a great project that'll be turned on in 2025.
It's taken you, or it will have taken you 20 years from the first time you step foot in Niger to get out the first pounds. This is Africa that we're talking about. This is supposed to be the fast track. What is that telling you about other jurisdictions and companies that are looking to, find a project right now in somewhere, in Canada or whatever, and get it into production during this cycle?
Well, you know what? I think that's going to be a difficult task. If you're starting from greenfield like we did, we entered the country, we looked for projects, or not projects, but actually permits where we could start exploring. And it took us a while, until the end of 2010, really, to find the Dasa deposit. And that project, of course, now has been 10 years plus in development. And we really never stopped because we had the cash coming in from Turkey to help us along. But any mining project, I would say, Antonio, is a minimum of 10 years to get it up and running. When you add complexities of permitting, which you have in Canada, that could be easily extended to 15 or 20 years, or even more than that. So I think the fact that we have gone through that whole period now and we are hitting a uranium market that's really starting to really move. That's timing wise, it's great for us and for our shareholders.
Okay. What are the? I know that some of the plans. Actually, when I look at your plans for the next 3 years, you have them laid out on your presentation that I have over here, including the plans for 2023. It says continue exploration in every one of those years. So, am I to read this as we're not looking for M&A activities? We're going to, try and grow our own projects at the first place and not pay attention to M&A, or would you be paying attention to M&A?
No, we're not paying attention to M&A at all. At this point in time, we're completely focused on getting Dasa up and running. But because Dasa is still open on strike, it's open down dip. We just finished a big program last year. We're now developing a program for the next round of drilling. But we also have the Tinigaran and Isakanan projects, which could add a pipeline of material to the Dasa plant, which we view as potentially being a centralized plant that could take loaded resins or pregnant leach solution from these other projects without spending a lot on another facility. M&A, that's something that you might look at once you're up and running. You're an established producer. You've got solid cash flow. You've had a re-rating in your shares. And then I think there's going to be other opportunities that we'll be able to look at to diversify the company around the world.
Okay, but are you drilling this year, next year, the year after that?
It all depends on budgets. So right now, of course, we raised some money a month ago or so, 56 million. That's now going further development of the project, including the underground surface infrastructure, ordering long lead items, all of this kind of stuff. But it all depends on budgets, Antonio. So we are preparing the next round of exploration drilling from a budget point of view and timing point of view. And as soon as we make that decision, we'll announce it to the market.
Okay. Your exploration permits run out on December 17th this year, though. Is it hard to get them extended, or are you doing that already?
Well, you know what? The good thing about those permits is that we've actually discovered deposits on them, and we've done enough work on them that we can effectively apply for an extension to the permits, utilizing the basis that they're not economically viable at the moment. They need more work. They need more drilling. They need a preliminary economic assessment and then a pre-feasibility study to be done. The government, as long as they see that you're moving on these things and you've actually identified a deposit that could be eventually economic, they'll let you continue working on it and they'll extend your permits. So that's what we've applied for. I don't see that that's going to be an issue, and I think those permits will be extended.
Fair point. And then, as you mentioned, cash is always needed, I guess, when you're exploring, you're building a project, obviously. But so you had at the end of the last quarter that you reported, you had some 53 million. I assume at the end of this quarter, that would be after G&A and all that, be probably somewhere around $50 million in cash. So definitely enough to keep the lights on and keep you progressing the ramp into the Dasa. But that you mentioned the processing facility, that's not enough to cover the total capex on the project, right? So I guess maybe a multifaceted question here, if you will. How much more money do you need to raise before Dasa is into production and cash flowing first? And the second part of the question is, when do we see the term sheet on the debt financing, on the debt facility that you have, and what do you think is going to be in those terms?
Well, you hit the nail on the head there. So the big component of the overall project is the debt facility. It looks like it's going to be a 60-40 debt equity ratio that we've managed to negotiate there, which is pretty favorable for a jurisdiction like Niger. I can't mention any terms at the moment because the lawyers are still working on finalizing all of that. We do expect to have a term sheet announced this quarter, and then final paperwork completed in the second or the the next quarter.
Mhm.
So that'd be the third quarter.
W-
Our cash right now takes us right through the end of the year. I would say that depending on what the banks are going to require as far as overrun facilities, working capital facilities, we have to review that at the end of the year effectively to find out if we need more capital. On that front, we've talked to a number of groups because we don't like dilution. I'm a big shareholder. I hate to see shares issued that dilute people. So we look at other opportunities and options, including we have some carry trade that would like to buy some pounds. They're willing to potentially do a prepayment. We've got some short-term mezzanine type debt that could be available. So we're looking at different options to see if we do need additional capital, how we could cover that with minimal dilution, let's say.
Hmm. You were expecting to get the term sheet earlier, though. What's slowing it down?
Yeah, no, we were expecting to get the term sheet announced by the end of Q1, and unfortunately, it's taken a lot longer. You're dealing with, for instance, Export Development Corporation. They had to post for 60 days on their website that they're doing this deal and then wait for comments. And if you take all that into account, plus the lawyers now on both sides getting involved, it's taken a lot longer than we expected. But it's still moving ahead very well, and I do expect that we'll have some further news on that in this quarter.
Okay. What about warrants? You have some 15 million of them.
We have some warrants that are due in June, but they're at $6 because they're related to a $4 financing that we did some time ago. And it would sort of take a miracle, I guess, to get those exercised in June, which is just a couple weeks away.
You're gonna have to do a lot of work to get people to exercise them at $6.
Yeah.
Tell you what, if you could do that, I'll put my entire net worth in you.
So exactly. I think those will probably expire, and that we can take them off the balance sheet. The other warrants are the ones that we just issued relating to the 36 or the $56 million financing. So those are an 18-month warrant, and they're at $4. So I would think that those we have good potential to get those exercised. I would expect once we announce the bank terms and we have all of that going, and people are satisfied that we don't need to come back to the market, the stock should get a re-rating.
I guess that's a fair point, because if you believe in, or you look at something like the Lassonde curve, you're sort of at the second dip of the curve. It's a higher low, obviously, but you're sort of at the dip of that curve. So it's not always easy managing financings around there. But so in the spirit of that, is there a chance that you might consider selling the zinc asset, the zinc facility, to raise some funds? Because I know you have a partner there.
That's definitely an option. It's not something that I'd really jump on at the moment, just because the zinc price is down. We had a tough year this year in Turkey. You wouldn't get a full valuation for that asset right now. I think you've got to wait till the situation in Turkey stabilizes. A lot of the steel plants are still offline because of the earthquake, so they need to get their steel production back up so that there's enough electric arc furnace dust available to keep the plant full. This new plant, is very efficient, very clean. It's capable of producing 60 million pounds a year of zinc. We have basically half of that. So you can see the cash flow generation capability here is quite high, but you need the steel plants operating in order to get your feed and reprocess that waste, which gives us the high-grade zinc concentrate.
Okay. Well, what I'm asking these questions is because I'm trying to figure out how much 2023 is really going to cost you in terms of keeping lights on, because you have quarterly 2.5 to 3 million G&A.
Well, you know what, the plant, is holding its head above water, I would say. And we do get our monthly fees from it, management fees, sales commissions. Once a year, it pays a dividend. I really don't see too much of a dividend being paid this year because of money we've used to really keep everything moving there. We paid money out to people that had their homes damaged because of the earthquakes. So 2023, I'd say, would be pretty much flat. I mean, we don't have any debt. We paid off the Bethesda loan. We do have a working capital banking facility in the country that is a revolver that we use as the corporation needs it in the country. But I would say this year, Turkey's not going to kick out a lot of cash to Global Atomic.
Okay, fair point. Well, why I'm bringing these things up is also because with the current environment and all that, I'm concerned about, cost overruns. And going into production is no easy feat, if anything ever is. But like, for example, you recently participated in a gold mine that went into production supposedly too quickly. And is there anything that you learned specifically from Harte Gold as to how not to do it, or anything that you can apply to Global Atomic now also going into production?
Well, you know what? I think that the Harte Gold project, it's called the Sugar Zone Mine. It's a project where I picked up a property. We developed a 2 million ounce gold deposit, basically from scratch. We developed the mine and built the mine. We had some financial players come in to finance the company. They decided that they wanted to make the mine much bigger. I suggested that no, the ore body would not handle that kind of excessive production. And, effectively what happened then is the financial group took over control of the project and removed all the management and directors. They went ahead with their plans. And of course, an ore body really dictates the size it needs to operate at. I don't think it's a case of getting into production too early or without enough studies. I mean, all the appropriate studies were done. The project is up and running. It's never stopped. So it's still a very good project. It's got a big exploration potential. The company that's in there now running it, I introduced them to the company 2 or 3 years in advance of its problems, let's say, that we had at the end. And the financial group that was involved said no, they were not interested in having any kind of a merger with anybody, which would have been great for the Harte Gold shareholders, I would say, because they would have all ended up with a much larger entity with multiple mines, and we would have all made money. The way it worked out, that particular company I introduced now owns the project, and they got it basically for the debt.
Okay.
So, you know what? It was just, I would say, financial mismanagement, but definitely not a technical issue.
Mining shenanigans, in a couple of words. if you're losing the people, but it's so basically you're coming down to don't sweat the asset, because it's called sweating the asset, right? Trying to take out more out of the asset than what the asset is capable.
Well, you're overstressing it.
Yeah,
you're overstressing it, and then of course the ore body we have in Niger is completely different ore body. The one in Canada was a narrow vein gold ore body, so the veins were anywhere from 1.5 meters to maybe 3.5, 4 meters wide. So that has to be mined very carefully and in small quantities, effectively. So we had a project that really was developed to produce between 500 and 700 tons per day. And, the financial guys come in and say, oh, no, we can push this thing to 1,200 tons per day. Well, the ore body won't handle it. And then you get yourself into difficulties.
Yeah.
So Niger, on the other hand, you've got an ore body that's anywhere from 60 to 120 meters thick. It's a big big ore body. It can be mined with long hole mining methods, which is very efficient, big stopes. So you're not going to have the same kind of issue. And, I think everything's been done very, very carefully. And, we've done all the required studies. We've done pilot plant testing. And now, of course, the feasibility study, and we're now in construction mode.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to figure out what the risks might be here, though. And the risks that I hear the most about from interviewing CEOs here is labor risk, finding good people to work for you, especially when it's in Canada and all the other places. Now, in your recent MD&A, you mentioned that due to the Cominac mine closing, you would have good access to skilled labor. But then after you published that MD&A, and recently, actually, maybe about a month ago or so, Orano also announced plans to operate their Sommer or Somet, or however it's called, mine
Sommer.
Yeah, for another 17 years, I think there was up until 2040, right? So I'd assume you guys will be competing for labor then, or like how do you look at it?
No, because you got to remember that those two mines have been operating for about 50 years. Cominac shut down about a year and a half ago. So they had a labor force of about 700 or 800 people. Sommer was mining, and they had their own labor force, and they're still there in place. So they operate out of a town called Arlit. And so a lot of the Cominac people, of course, now don't have jobs. And so we've brought quite a few of them on board. We've also done a countrywide campaign to bring in new people. We have training programs, mentorship programs. So, we're training young people in the industry. But we've got a good core of people that came from Cominac that are very experienced underground miners and management. So it was a stroke of luck, I guess, for us that that labor pool was available for Global Atomic to get the Dasa project started.
How many people do you think it's going to take for you to get to sort of full production? I mean, how many people? What's the number of the staff of people working there?
We have about 180 to 190 people working there right now. My last figure was about 150, but now it's growing to 185, I think. The full staff, of course, would be in the range of 300 to 400 people once the mine is up and running and the plant is running and we're producing yellowcake. So we'll have rotations there, and we're doing very, very favorable rotations. Everybody likes it. So everybody lives at home, but we have a very well-developed mine camp with catering, the whole thing, laundry service, etc. So people rotate in on a 2-week in, 2-week out basis, and so that way they're not overly stressed. And I think that's going to add, of course, the requirement for more labor because you've got a short rotation period. But in total, I would say 300 to 400 people would be there full-time employed at the mine site. Then, of course, the support service for a mine, typically you multiply that by 7 and you get sort of the major impact that a mine has on the region and on the country. I mean, you have all these service providers across the country that are going to be there supporting that project.
Having mentioned Orano, something I've been wondering about, maybe another potential. I mean, you tell me if it's a risk or not. But you've been in talks with them about ore processing and other matters actually for quite a while now. I haven't seen anything in your news releases about them. But without ore processing, there's no drums going out to customers. So you have to figure that out before 2025. So what's the latest on your talks with Orano ore processing?
The agreement we made with Orano in 2017 was that we would ship them development ore up to a maximum of 500,000 tons of ore, starting really when the mine started and we had that material available. So that would be 2024. We would have some material available that could be shipped. Orano right now as far as I know, they're still very interested in taking that material to their SOMAR operation. We've been talking about what's the best sampling procedure and logistics. So that's really where we are right now with them. As far as we know, they're still interested in taking the material, which could give us some early cash flow next year. But of course, once we turn our plant on, there won't be a requirement to move anything up the road. Now, if they do finalize an agreement for a specific amount of tonnage, then we can announce that. But at the moment, we've sort of been, I would say, discussing the final terms of the arrangement, and we'll see if they move on it or not. Antonio, I'm not driving that. We've suggested that might be a good thing. They signed an agreement on that basis, but whether they want to proceed at the end of the day, that will be up to them.
But ideally, over the long run, you want to do your own milling, basically.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No. The mill right now is in the final stages of design. We've already started ordering components for the mill. So that the earthworks have already started. We're going to have civils, all the cement pouring, foundations starting at the end of next quarter. And by the end of this year in Q4, we're going to be starting to get hardware arriving at site. So during 2024, there'll be the complete build out.
Okay. How are the supply chains around that? I know a lot of companies had issues with those things.
Yeah, you know what? It's a good point, because during our feasibility process, of course, we released the feasibility right at the height of COVID, and all the supply chains were disrupted. The costs were going up. Now we're finding everything's coming back down to normal. Shipping costs have come way down. We've now also found local cement, steel, and various other components we need. So that's going to be very beneficial to us. So, I think it's going to work out very well, having that period of time where, the market sort of stabilized, and all of our numbers are coming in fairly in line, I would say, with the feasibility study.
Okay. So that's a sort of outside of Niger. I mean, Niger doesn't have a lot to do with that. You did recently have some issues inside of Niger. Got resolved pretty quickly, and I spoke in Switzerland about this too. It didn't seem to be much of an issue, but help me sort of get a visual of how things are really on the ground, though. Or like, are people, I don't know, gathering around your projects to protest? Like, I mean, what do you see when you arrive at the project, basically?
You see a lot of happy people. We have big support in the region. The government and the local population are very supportive. They view this project as really something that can reinvigorate, rejuice the north of the country. And of course, the government in Niger now is having a lot of discussions with Algeria about reconnecting all the economic ties with Algeria. And this project, being located where it is just helping that whole rejuvenation of business in that region. So everybody really likes it. The people that started making noise, they're getting financed from some group that, of course, we've got some ideas who that might be, but they had a case that had no merit, and it was quickly rejected. Now, people that don't like mining, they don't want a mine to go ahead, they don't like uranium, they're always going to be there. So these are things that we have to deal with. And but I would say the population, generally speaking, are very, very happy with what's going on there. We employ all local people in the region, from towns and villages. We bring them in by bus. We have our own buses. We feed them well. They have good housing accommodation. So, it's something that's very, very positive.
Okay. I believe that the government is also very supportive of you, which makes sense because they have 20% free carried interest on your project.
No, 10% free carry.
Okay. Oh, they have 10% free care and then they upped another 10% on that, but they're also financing their portion of the next 10%. That's right. Yeah,
That's
you
it.
make a good point. Make a good point. What's how's the mining code in Niger? Like, can they up that to 40% just
No,
because they
no,
want it?
no, no. They had a period of time before the formation of SOMITA that they could choose how much they wanted to have as their shareholding of the local mining company. So when we formed SOMITA, they initially told us they were going to take 10, and then they decided they're going to take 20 because they wanted to fund part of it, which is good because they have skin in the game now, and they have a real incentive to make sure everything works.
Hmm.
So I think it's a good thing. The agreement was well done. We're operating under the old mining code, which gives us a 3-year tax holiday, no VAT on mining equipment and everything related to the project. We are allowed to recoup all of our costs before dividends are paid. So that includes all of our exploration costs getting to that point. No, it's a very good agreement.
Tax holiday, such a funny word. But I know what you mean. Now, I'm almost about to let you go here. Just want to talk about where your pounds eventually will or might end up once you sell them. You recently went to one of the bigger nuclear conferences here in the West, not too far from me, actually, in The Hague.
In The
What
Hague,
kind of what kind of buyers, what kind of parties approached you there? Like, is it mostly non-OECD or mainly OECD countries or a mix? I don't know.
well, first I'll say that the Hague conference was fabulous. It was very well attended. There was 350 people there. There was utilities from all around the planet there. So OECD, non-OECD, and I was approached really by just about everybody that was there that was potentially looking for new uranium supply. With the Russia-Ukraine situation, a lot of Russian materials not going to be going to a lot of utilities. They're making decisions not to take Russian supply, so they're looking at other options. Africa is a good place. However, and this is very important to remember, that most of all the uranium in Africa that's being mined is going to China. So that's not hitting the market. So there's very little. There's maybe 50% of Langer Heinrich in Namibia and our project that's available for international utilities. The uranium from Somaïr that Orano's mining is all going to France. So you know what? There's just not too much uranium available. And in The Hague, the conference speakers, and these are very high-level people, have said that there needs to be an additional 200 gigawatts of nuclear capacity. Generally, I would say across the board, all the countries that were there, and many were represented, said that they want to be at net carbon zero by 2050. So this is just unachievable unless there's a major expansion in nuclear energy, which is really the only clean, reliable baseload energy available on the planet, except for hydropower. But there's not that many rivers around that you can keep damming and creating hydropower. So nuclear is it.
Do you feel generally, like when you attend these conferences, and I know this sounds superficial because we start talking about feelings, but when you used to go to those conferences before, like let's say 5-6 years ago, as a uranium, as someone involved in the uranium production side, do you now feel differently? Like, do you feel as if you have the upper hand on utilities here? Like, how does the whole thing feel?
Well, from a point of view of what it looked like post Fukushima, when everybody, was down in the dumps, so to speak, now everybody's very buoyant, very optimistic. They've never seen a market like this for the nuclear industry. So I would say, generally speaking, the mood is very good, very positive. Utilities, they're very cautious. So they've been able to secure supply over the years, particularly post-Fukushima years, because there was enough material around in stockpiles. But that's pretty much all getting used up or has been used up. The warhead conversion program's been used up. So they're starting to go out there now and look for new supply. They'd like to support new developers because there's not that many out there. So we've signed 2 definitive agreements now to supply 2 big utilities in North America. We've got another list behind that would like to sign with us because they view Niger as a stable place to produce. And what they're waiting for is for us to announce our debt terms on the financing. They want to be assured that the financing is in place. And then I think you'll see a number of other utilities sign on with us.
Okay.
Everybody across the board that I met there wanted to have us included in their RFP program. So when they're going out for tender, they're going to be including Global Atomic. So this is all very positive developments for the company.
Yeah, it seems like the debt sheet that you're going to get here is going to be an important turning point. It's going to get a lot of investors paying attention too. We're going to figure out how and when or if you're going to have to come to the market and stuff like that. So just one last thing before you go. What do you make of the current pricing that's being reported to us retail investors? I mean, UXC seems to be quite conservative according to the chatter on the internet. And I know you cannot tell me the exact prices of your contracts or whatever is being discussed in behind closed doors in these conferences. But when you look at the pricing, the UXC specific reporting for the long-term price, does that seem realistic to you, or does it seem conservative?
Well, I think it's typically conservative, and they're usually, the industry is usually very conservative. But if there's no supply, of course the price has to move higher, and it looks like there could be a crunch coming down the pipe. There's not a lot of excess conversion facility out there either, because people aren't going to be using Russian converted supplies. Just generally across the board in all the different types of fuel and yellowcake all the way down to the mine, I mean, all of this is going to start moving up. What we're doing with our contracts, we're typically using a blended formula. So you use some parts spot, midterm, long-term pricing. And so you have a formula. And what we want to do is layer in contracts. So as things move along, we signed new contracts at hopefully higher prices. We don't expect prices will be going down. But we did our feasibility study at $35 a pound. So now contracts are being written in the $50 to $60 a pound range. So it's very, very profitable for our business.
All right, Mr. Roman, thank you so much for investing your time with me. Anything I'm forgetting to ask you here at the end?
No, I think we covered a lot of issues here. I think for the moment, we're looking good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.